Hi, welcome to the March 9th episode of the Benmore Brief. Today I have Director of Sales, Steve Wright at Synergis. First time on, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. How are you
Thanks,
doing?
Richard. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we have a couple things to go over today, but first and foremost, I guess, can you just kind of walk us through, I'm sure your days are quite different, but in general, kind of like, what a day by day looks like for you and kind of what you do at Synergis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, there's never a dull moment in the world of technology staffing. It's as diverse as people are, right? Now, of course, I'm on the client side. We've got some fantastic recruiters here, been here doing what they do, and they make me look great every day. But effectively, my what I'm tasked with is to grow the business with net new logos, conversations along those lines, maintain my book of business, as well as kind of manage the flow of new requirements coming in, clarifying those requirements, and they're all technical requirements. So it could be anything. We're obviously doing a lot in the artificial intelligence realm, which is why I'm excited to be on this podcast to chat with you about that. Um, but from a day to day, it's actually gotten a little bit easier because of the adoption of AI with some of the things that we've been doing to automate some of those processes. The relationship piece never goes away,
Hmm.
but the tools have certainly made my job a lot
Hmm.
easier. Let's put it right. And I've been in sales for 3+ decades. I've been in the staffing business for 15. I've been with Synergist for 5.5. And just across that realm, I've seen so many advancements that have changed in this business, not just from how I do the job, but also from how our clients go about looking at talent, what they're looking for to future proof the resources they bring in for their projects, etc. It's quite a journey, and for somebody who considers technology not only a career but also a hobby, it's a great place to sit.
No, that's super interesting. Can you go a little bit more in depth? I'll ask you about your specific like AI tool stack in just a sec, but can you go in
Sure.
depth into the exact types of you said logos, but accounts that you're specifically targeting? I know I saw like we got introduced because I saw that you championed the mid-market initiative a couple of years ago. But are you still targeting mid-market? Are you dealing more with the enterprise at this point? What who are you guys targeting at this point?
So we all do a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
right? So as far as Synergist goes, we work with a lot of large, well-known logos in a lot of different arenas. I myself am working with a large enterprise account due to the relationships that I had that kind of worked, and I'm not going to say no to it. But as far as the efforts that I'm doing and the strategy that I have, as far as the new business development, I think you've got to have a breadth and scale of companies that you're working with, and I kind of build it out to the 10, 6, 1 measurement. I want to have 10, and these are active clients that I'm managing, 10 smaller companies, 6 mid-sized companies, and 1 large enterprise client. And that allows me to balance out workflow, manage resources, manage just the day to day, the administrative stuff that I'm doing. Um, but also kind of balances out the margin that I have because a smaller account, a little bit more money, the larger account, big volume, lower dollars there. But when I kind of look at where I spend most of my time, it absolutely is in that mid-market arena where it's not so much about avoiding the processes and bureaucracy of a large enterprise because there's plenty of it there.
Mhm.
But it really gives me more access to work with the users and the business owners and the hiring managers who really want to hear the advice. They want to hear what's going on in the market. What are the market trends? Where are things heading? What do I see with companies adopting agentic AI
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
adopting different tools here and there? And there's just a big question mark out there. I think the mid market is maybe not slower to adopt some of these technologies, but I think the large enterprise has more scale and more resources to be able to be the buyers of that. Even though the mid market has it can benefit so much more to bring
Mhm.
themselves up to the same level as a larger enterprise and scale a lot. But being
Yeah.
able to provide those that advice and be a consultant to those folks is really why I love the mid market. So
Yeah, no, that's been something that it's been very interesting because I mean, I told you, when we last talked that, our, initial line of business is mainly at the, very small SMB side and sort of individual level. Definitely at the mid market space is something that I heard you talk about, and I forgot the name of the podcast, but it's the consulting aspect of the sale as well. And I actually really enjoy that part too, because I'm
yeah,
passionate about this space, and I don't know if it's the same with you, but it's cool to give value. I mean, like part of sales is just building a relationship and giving value where you can, here and there. But I really enjoy that. How does that change at the enterprise level? Is it even more consultant driven sales, or is that something mainly for the mid market level?
you know you still get there, right? It takes longer to get there and develop those relationships. From my experience, you've kind of got to prove your value in the way a program is set up to work. And I'm talking staffing specifically, right? And even because we're doing some professional services as well, but you have to get in there. You have to prove yourself. You have to get in there. And sometimes there's a lot of different ways to do that. A lot of times it's relationship driven. The large enterprise account that I have is actually from a very strong leader that came from the mid market who got hired into a large enterprise who, quite frankly, they knew that I had contacts within a specific skill set. So when they were really struggling with it, I got the phone call just to help them out. Um, and to me, Richard, I think you just hit the nail on the head, is being that consultant and providing value in that conversation. The more you do that, the more those relationships are built. And those relationships are built with the individual. It's not built with a company. So when they move to another organization and they see an opportunity to bring your solution because it's going to help them, they're not going to hesitate reaching out to you. They're not going to call the company.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially if they just got hired in a new organization, there's kind of like an initial urge to want to come in and show some immediate impact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it just takes time. It takes a little bit longer to prove yourself in the large enterprise side. I mean, it still takes, you still got to do the same thing in the mid market, but I think you build your reputation, you have a good conversation, you've got some knowledge, not just on your technology and your product and your solution that you're providing, but you've got some knowledge and insight on their industry. And more importantly, you're working within that industry. I've worked with plenty of manufacturing companies, for example. And a manufacturing company, IT it's a cost, right? I mean, it's kind of grown a little bit and matured a little bit to where they're got a seat at the table, maybe not a big one, but it is a cost of doing business. If you're a carpet manufacturer, you're spending money on filling up your manufacturing places, and you've got your JD Edwards that you got to deal with and your manufacturing technology from that front. But the rest of it, there really isn't a ton of IT. I work with a 36,000 employee carpet manufacturer. They got 50 people in IT that runs the whole thing.
Yeah, we were talking about that as well, where, just headcount is not necessarily the best metric depending on the product or service that you're providing. I mean, like you said, if like McDonald's, for example, right? Like they're going to have a smaller IT department than Amazon, like that, So, but anyway, so let's talk about these AI tools. So I assume that you guys have adopted some. Are there any that come to mind that were just like sort of transformative on the sales side? On us, it was the meeting recordings. That was like a huge, for our sales, is just having transcripts and stuff like that. Is there any tools that can't come to mind where it's just changing the way that things are done?
I think the meeting recordings are great. I mean, there's no question about that. But there's the legality of that, right? You've got to make sure you're asking permission. This is not a forgiveness versus permission argument when it comes to that. You got to push that out there right out of the gate. But as far as transformative, I mean, this is very specific to the staffing business, right? And there's an application called Bullhorn. And Bullhorn is probably like the application for staffing companies, right? And it really manages both our recruiting team. So our recruiters are working with the candidates, going out and find them for the jobs that I'm out there talking to clients and bringing them in. and it's a very collaborative platform, right? So inside that platform, we have 500,000 candidates, right? Contract, direct hire, the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm bringing in a rec. Now, in the older version of Bullhorn, there were keyword searches, and you could pull in and type in, I need X number of years, I need a degree, I need Python, I need PostgreSQL, I need some Java, Microsoft, whatever it is, right? You kind of type in those keywords, and it'll pull up a list of candidates that are closest to what you've entered in. Well, Bullhorn has gone by the way of AI, and now we can go and upload that job description, assuming it's an accurate job description, which is where I come in and gather that information correctly. It will go in and scour 500,000 candidates, put up the top ones, and it's effective, right? It is not as, because it's a little bit broader when you do a keyword search because it doesn't understand the context. The AI tool brings in a little bit more context to that picture. And the reality is it's faster, and it speeds the ability. It doesn't replace our recruiters, but it speeds our recruiters' ability to reach out to the right people up against that job. So that's a built-in tool to there. And they actually just released, it's called, I forget what it was called, but there's a little tab up there that effectively it's a chat box. And it does the exact same thing as anything. So I can go in and I can, instead of going in and looking at the old school crystal reports, which I choke on every time I think about reporting with that tool, you can actually ask questions of your own data, and it is living in our data only. It's not external. But I can ask questions of what are the common tool sets? All right, I'm working on cloud. How many AWS versus Azure versus GCP cloud engineers do we have in our database over here? Which platform is being requested by our clients more? Which one do we have a greater success in? And I don't have to worry about any kind of weird scripting. I just natural language, and it pops it right back out. So spinning that back, Richard, to the advisory and consulting perspective, if you're coming to me and going, hey, I'm breaking into a new market, I'm calling into Austin, but I really don't know much about that. Can you tell me in that particular market, I'm really going to be going for Java microservices, Python, whatever, right? My SQL background. What does that market look like in there? Well, the supply is very minimal. The demand is super high because you're competing with all the Austin-based companies who are in there. But I've got that data sitting there right in front of me, and it's our own company's data versus scouring the internet. So I can be very confident in the information I'm sending, also from market rates and bill rates and pay rates and all the rest of that stuff. So is really phenomenal.
Yeah, I was just looking through. I don't know how like Bullhorn's doing as a company, but I would assume that is one of the most effective usages of sort of the LLM generative AI sort of wave. Is search, right? You see it in Google, right? You see it, I think it was like 60 or 70% of ChatGPT queries are just information at this point. Like people are going to AI over Google and traditional search. And I can imagine that when that feature got rolled out, because keyword, like you said, keyword search, it can give you a list of people who say on their resume are proficient in Python. And I'm sure they probably had some like chained skills that you could like do complex queries with and stuff like that. But uploading an entire resume, it probably just extracts it, embeds it, and then just matches it against your. Would you say that it's like, it sounds like it's more effective. How much more effective is it?
Effective. So think about the context, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, good, bad, or ugly, will put a skill bank at the top of the resume, right? Here's the skills that I have. A lot of people make the mistake of putting a skill that they've learned in college in that skill bank, but do not contextualize it in what they do for their work and their responsibilities in their resume, right? So this application compares it up against. Now there's a score ranking that goes in there. So if you're looking for a Python engineer and they mention Python in that skill bank, but they don't mention how they use it or where they use it or what project it's from, it's going to score fairly low because it's just mentioned one time. It's not about saying Python multiple times on your resume. It is about saying, I used Python to do X, to do the Python, blah, 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 right? And that's where that LLM, the magic really hits. Because we're able to see not only do they have the skill, we can see how they use the skill. And then we're confident that the people we're reaching out to are the people that our clients want to hire.
Yeah. So I've seen a new wave of some startups coming in the space now. I don't know if you've heard of Mercor. I think there's a one or two others, but they're utilizing AI in their technical interview process as well. And so I'd like to hear your opinions on that beyond just essentially data querying. Once you have an applicant pool or whatnot, is there any sort of in the pipeline, the hiring pipeline that you guys have used any AI tools to, sort of derive skill, especially in the technical space, or do you see, that hit?
Richard, how much is there to know in the grand world of technology and technical requirements there's a lot. And it runs from old school to the latest and greatest. So at Synergis, we're structured where each of our recruiters are responsible for pipelining a couple of skill sets. Okay. So they get knowledgeable in it. They know the questions to ask. They get used to it. Obviously, the longer you're here, the more you get adept with it. But, we look for development talent all the time. And our recruiter's not been a developer, but she knows the questions to ask. She knows when to call out the folks who aren't necessarily being truthful about their background. That said, when we get a Microsoft Dynamics role that is looking for Azure DevOps background, because this is more about pipeline management than it is about Azure or Dynamics, somebody might not know the intricacies of that. So the AI tool will actually go in, look at that requirement, and then spit out and say, hey, here's a few vetting questions you might want to ask. Here's the answers to these questions too, by the way. So when they answer them, you kind of know whether they've got it or not. So they kind of provide a little bit of guidelines, but that's a little extra color as far as the technology, so they can get a little bit. And eventually what they're doing is they're not just getting fed those questions, but they're being educated on that technology at the same time. So they don't have to go back and use those canned questions every single one. And it's not the basics. It is like, because look, I remember geekinterview.com used to be my favorite website because I could go on there for any technology and I could find a question that could help me out. This is being very contextual against that job got, and talking about the environment, talking about the database, and it kind of sucks it all in. So it's much more powerful. So yes, absolutely. Now I have heard the whole video interview being rated by AI. I think you can get sometimes a black and white yes or no. Yes, I did this. No, I did not do that. But I think that human factor becomes really important because you can listen for sure the tone somebody's doing. You can hear about the hems and haws. You can hear the confidence level when somebody's pushing it out. I don't think it's quite gotten there yet. I think it's got a good. I think that it'll get there, but more so the applications that I've seen are reviewing like OAs, just faster essentially, and most of the time it still hits like if you're direct hiring, for example, and you're short-staffed, right? So basically you just have your senior engineer having to go through all of the code submissions on those online applications. There I've seen a lot of use cases where you can have a first pass done by AI just to very clearly just outline. But then there's kind of a conundrum where, as I'm sure maybe you guys have seen this, it's kind of like AI versus AI because so many people are using AI so it's just these two AI, AI versus AI going at it. I think, Richard, that gets you to the table. I think there'll be a first pass, and that's a sourcing mechanism than it is a vetting mechanism.
Yeah.
And those are two very different things. Most of our clients who are really getting in deep and are looking for that great talent will go through a similar process. However, when they bring somebody in, they're having them go up to the whiteboard and they're having them write out some code, or there's some code up there and say, fix it, what's wrong with it. And it isn't about getting that code to run. It is about listening and watching and hearing the thought process of how that person solves problems. That is not something that an AI agent can ever do. And again, not yet.
Again, we don't know. But as of it's the same at Benmore. We have our last interview is just it's a whiteboarding question, and it's the best. I mean, because you get to see, like you said, the way that someone communicates their thought. Obviously, at Benmore, as mentioned, we have a lot of consulting for our developers that they end up doing. So the soft skill component is huge. And you're right. There's some level of video analysis that these tools can do right now, but there's nothing like having someone come into the office, pull up a whiteboard, and walk you through their thought process. I haven't come across anything better than that. That's just more optimal at this point. So
yeah, I haven't. And you've got a double challenge. And I know, Richard, we talked offline about this, but you're hiring development talent who could also act, and you just said it, as that consultant. So there's a client-facing component as well as a technical that absolutely needs to be there. I don't know that you can have an AI that's going to test up against that. By the way, I don't believe a personality assessment is necessarily the way to go for something.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think that any test is really out there. Yeah,
it's getting somebody into a room, right?
Yeah.
And even talking to them up against the whiteboard exercise that you've got going. How are they communicating? How are they walking through the munitions that are running through their head, but are they able to articulate some of these more complex ideas when they're trying to figure something out and push that out to their audience in a way that is easily understood? It's a hard talent to find.
No, it is. One of the most complex things that our developers have to do is to communicate complex technical concepts to non-technical people. So we have a portion of the interview process where it's role playing. It's like, forget that I'm a senior engineer. I don't want to hear about AWS. I don't know what AWS is. I don't know what DevOps is. I just know that I click these buttons and this happens, right? And so we use the most effective thing that we've seen and that we end up using a lot in our business is analogies. Analogies are great. I love analogies in consulting. But yeah, no, to your point, like it's one of those things where I think the tools just aren't there right now. Maybe in the future, with the speed that these tools are developing at, it can get there. But as of right now, there's just nothing more optimal than essentially just hearing someone's thought process.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, there's one thing that just popped into my head because I am back in the seat of being an individual contributor and out there selling and growing our business again. I spent last year growing our early career sales professionals. And these are taking people who have an interest in sales, or they did some level of sales, or they studied in college and they came out. So the real world expertise just wasn't there. So I created a foundation sales training program with the help of a consulting company. But there was a tool, because I used to do role play 3 days a week. But that doesn't mean there's not an independent study component out there. And I had found an AI tool that basically was the role play.
Really?
And it was very.
What was it called?
Find it and send it to you.
Okay, yeah, please do.
But it absolutely is out there, and it wasn't fluff. It was really good because look, a lot of the sales methodology, sales process, what to say, what not to say. Even, by the way, it even had contextualized talking points from a staffing perspective, which is a big industry. But it was able to really do the stuff. It was already embedded in there because it was AI, because it was pulling from all. It wasn't using real data. It wasn't using real customers. But you could do a back and forth without another human being. Like, part of me is like, hey, if you've got somebody you're interviewing and that's a piece and that's going to be towards the end, throw them a link to that application and have them
Right.
go
Yeah.
self-study. Even if they've never done it before, they might discover that they've got a taste for it. And then
Yeah.
you can go back a little bit later on. I'll dig that tool up.
Yeah, please do that. That would be very helpful. Well, that actually brings me to another point. I wanted to talk about two more things.
Yeah.
One, beyond Bullhorn, what generalized tools are you seeing in your organization, like ChatGPT or whatnot? Are people using generalized tools? I know there might be some constraint from your business, like depending on what's allowed and what's not.
Yep.
But are you getting any sort of efficiency that you've seen from just general, like ChatGPT or Claude or anything like that in your org?
So I mean, if you think about it, it's the research side of things, right? Now we're blessed to have a really sharp data analytics professional here, Jiwen. She is absolutely top notch. So what we do is, if you think about this, like in a traditional staffing company, salespeople are tasked with going out and finding their own market, finding the companies to call, figure all that stuff out. There's a lot of tools to do that. You could do it yourself, but if you're not a data person, you might not know how to pull that stuff up. So from a ChatGPT, we're starting off with different industry segments, right? Let's talk about the GDP industries that are in there. Which ones are doing better? Let's take a look at geographies and what geographies are what cities are growing, and then compare those GDP industries to what's in those cities. Then we start matching up and saying, what size of companies do we want to get into? Now we've got a really targeted machine going that our data analytics person will come and pull up and have all that sitting there, all done through ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Outside sources, nothing more, and it's just pulling that basic information. Now, we do have access to other tools that are very specific information that is a lot quicker to go in once you have named companies that you want to go into to mine data to really dig a little bit deeper. So it saves a ton of it. So we got the ChatGPT, right? So from a data analysis, from a data research perspective, from a prospect research perspective, it's a generic tool. I don't think there's too much more than that. And it's not problem solving; it's information gathering.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if we talked about this the last time, last week. But what we've seen at Benmore, the most effective tool usage from obviously the tools are going to be better if there's some internal business context that you are able to pipe into it. It's just going to be better because it just has more context. But it's still like a lot of these like traditionally manual tasks, research, putting together a presentation, summarizing a document, mocking, like you said, like mocking a situation. There's a lot of tool usage in coding specifically, just because the nature, like coding's so great for these tools because it's deterministic. Like that's huge, right? So the LLM can run tests, right? Like you can't really run tests against your research report. You can have it go through a second or third time to make sure that it's not pulling but if it writes a script, it can write tests to ensure. But a lot of coding is just tedious, like labor, 10% of coding is like 10%, most of if you go through a proper planning phase, most of the work is done in the architecture and planning of whatever project you're working on. But then the remaining 70% is, sort of the implementation, which of course there's stuff that comes up that you can't plan for. And that's where it's important to still have an expert who can, overcome like bugs that come up. But most of the time, like coding's like very laborious, like functionally, it's just a lot of like, I know what I need to do. It's time to type, and time to research, time to find out, stuff like that. So, would you say,
by the way, that has materially changed my business.
Yeah. I was about to ask.
65% of what I was doing with my clients was development. Actually, probably closer to 3 years ago. And then that started slowly knocking down because the more basic coding exercises were being replaced. Initially, I thought this is just all going offshore. But it wasn't all offshore.
No.
It started being replaced. And then last year, we really saw it, right? Now, we still saw the architects. We still saw the thinkers. We still saw the people who were creating the foundation and creating the structure. But the actual the more basic manual components were being replaced by AI tools. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
to flip that back to what I was talking about, yes, you can upload that code and you can get it stuff and you can do your plus stuff. But if you think about from an industry perspective, I'm dealing with people's resumes. I'm dealing with requirements that are given to me from a client, and that raw data from the client I cannot upload into a Gen AI tool. I can't put it into ChatGPT, nor could I put somebody's resume, because I'm taking somebody's personal information, I'm uploading it to the world. So that is a big no-no in our piece. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't take pieces out, help me, right? For me, probably for my day-to-day use case, yes, we've got tools to automate. Like, that's probably why we have Bullhorn AI, because it lives in our walled off ecosystem, and I can do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, for me, when I'm producing, I write all day long. Of course, I write emails, I write papers. There's a whole bunch of things that I do. The one thing I don't do is outsource that to an AI.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst things you could do. And one of the hardest things I had to get some of my more early career professionals to understand, you need to be able to write in your own voice to train that AI to be able to spit it out, so it's at least got your tone and your person who you are. So write it first, then have it clean it up.
Yeah.
And
I 100% agree. I saw it. Go ahead.
I hate that it's better than me.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I saw this tweet a couple weeks ago where it's like AI has replaced a lot of things. It hasn't replaced thinking.
No.
But I mean, I think that's what the sort of collapse is going to come to. It's going to be the expertise and the thought process, and however that transforms various different industries. That's time will tell on that one. But obviously, that's the entire ethos of our company. I mean, we make we're doing software development services, which typically, if you look at the giants, Infosys, Accenture, I mean, they're essentially just teams for hire and, just these massive, essentially like ongoing projects, which I can talk about for hours because obviously I've done a ton of research. I think there's, some issues with that. But we took the opposite approach where it's like, let's hire the most talented people and tool them with AI and see how much they can do. And, that's been paying off so far. And I think it will keep going that way. I want to ask you, do you think it will ever replace the thinking? Do you think it will ever, with enough business context, do you think it could be making more or managerial decisions, sort of these free thought decisions? Or do you think it's always going to stay at the implementation / labor side of things?
Well, what I hope and what I see happening are two different things, right? Being in leadership, you have a responsibility for the individuals that you are guiding. And the decisions you make always impact people. I think when you pop that off to an AI tool, you can, let's just assume that you've cleaned all the bias out, which is the first.
Right.
Hypothetically, you've cleaned all that out. Right, but where's that human factor come in? Because an AI tool would look, hey, let's look at the finances. I got 40,000 people inside my company. I could do without these 3,000 that are doing something over here, and I can up my dollar. And if my mission as my
directive,
is to make the company more money, that is a very clean.
Exactly.
Boom, there goes those 3,000 people. Now, the corporate stewardship, and I never done business with Synergis. I'm going to talk about them because I haven't, so I don't feel like I'm under any NDA. But when RPA was becoming a big hit, right, that was kind of in that world of AI, or at least from an automation perspective, Synergis went headfirst into it, and there was a lot of manual. Think about those paper processes for mortgages and loans, all of that stuff that's coming through. They really could have cleaned house from thousands of employees. It could have been ugly. Synergis as an organization said, we're not going to do that. Is we have some great people here. We're going to put in RPA. We're going to replace those manual processes with automated processes. And then we're going to reskill all
Yeah.
of those individuals
Yeah.
for a modern workplace, which is what Synergis is going to be. It is probably like, I love hearing that story. I used to lead a networking group, and I had the person who actually headed up that initiative talk about that. I was just like, that is what corporate America should be. Would an AI bot do that? I think if you gave it the instructions to do that, maybe.
Yeah. If you gave it the instructions. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's a, will
Yeah.
it ever get there?
I don't
I
know.
think
I don't know. It's more about like, are people gonna let it get like, you could I think it's one of the things where, oh gosh, we were doing another podcast, and it was one of those things where it was like, technically, maybe theoretically, yes, but are you gonna be the VP that's gonna die on that hill, like that for starting that initiative? And there was this TV show, I don't know if you've watched it. It's called Silicon Valley, where they made
one of my
have you,
favorites.
yeah, do you remember the scene where they gave their AI agent Anton or whatever, like, managerial control, and it was like it thought that the most effective way to be as optimal as possible was to delete itself or something, or like delete the entire code base or something. And what's funny about Silicon Valley is, as AI progresses, that becomes less of a drama and more of a documentary, honestly. Yeah. Yeah. But okay, so that being said, that last thing that you mentioned, and we talked about this last week, that's sort of a line of service offering that we're trying to break into. And we've had conversations with many people in the space who are like, well, we know that we can automate things, but we also know that people, need to, upskill, you use the term upskill, but, just become comfortable with these tools. What does that mean essentially, like, for you and your hiring pipeline? Are you now hiring? Not hiring pipeline. You're staffing. Are you seeing? Are companies coming to you with more requirements where they're looking for developers or technical specialists who have great familiarity with these tools, are experts in using these tools? How have you seen those requirements change?
So it's a great question, and I love it because before I talk about that, I want to mention one other thing,
Sure.
right? Because it's an evolution. This industry has consistently evolved, and I will
Yeah.
take it back to not too long ago when the cloud started.
Yeah, it was all cloud, right? Yeah.
So if you're a traditional network engineer, right, and you're doing hardwires and you're doing and all the servers and everything else that you go in there, and you're a Cisco certified, you got your CCIE, you are the bomb. But when the cloud came out, all of those network engineers said, I got to be a cloud engineer. I got to go get myself upskilled. I have to become knowledgeable about this. And there are some people who chose to go that route, and there's others who didn't. And they got left behind pretty quick, right? Now, it doesn't mean that there's not organizations that still require that skill set.
Yep.
And the fewer people that come, the higher paid it gets. So it's actually, but there's not as much work, right?
Right.
So everybody kind of flowed over to there. Well, that was a skill set change where we really could see we had requests for network engineers. Then we moved over to the request for cloud engineers. AI is a little bit more tricky than that. So the evolution was less about we are filling development jobs. Now we're looking for AI engineers, which to some extent is happening. We're doing a lot of machine learning. We're doing a lot of AI, all the rest of that stuff. But what we're getting from our clients are more questions, especially from the mid-market. Right?
Really?
Yes. Then those questions are, what are other people doing? At one point, we had an executive from a utility company that we work with come and say, we want to be an AI organization. This is a couple of years ago. We want to be an AI organization regardless of the industry. What are your other clients doing with Gen AI? And we said, you know what? Let's put a dinner together. So we had 9 or 10 executives from each from different companies. We brought in a couple of subject matter experts that kind of knew what the story was. But we had the legal industry, we had finance, we had manufacturing, we had some, and I'm not mentioning company names for those purposes, but it was absolutely fascinating. So we had an organization that was a big telecom company They had all the assets in the world. They were throwing money at it. They were getting stuff built up, but they built a secure sandbox and playground for their entire employee base to go and just do and play and make it an R&D perspective. I dealt with a law firm. That law firm, wow, was that an education? The biggest monetary financial windfall that they had was they could save money on sending a photographer out to take pictures of all their lawyers who were spread out across the country, and they just had to have them send in a picture, and they used AI to mock it up and make it modern for their headshots. That's how they saved money. Now, if you think about it, but think about that from a law firm, I started thinking immediately when he said that, I'm like, what are you talking about? You got preparing briefs, you got research.
Yeah, summarization. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Guess how much money you're taking away from the lawyers? Because they bill for all.
Yeah, they bill on the hour. Yeah.
Right? So you're screwing yourself, right?
Uh-huh.
But there was also, because there was a couple of court cases where some lawyers had used AI the briefs.
I saw that.
All wrong. They were citing cases.
Yeah, they were making up cases.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they started writing into their contracts to prevent that. They had some clients who were writing into the contract, you can't
use AI. Wow.
And then you had the other side of so that they are pushing it out because they want to protect their revenue stream. So it's such an interesting.
That's so strange.
Sitting in the staffing seat, where I deal with a lot of different industries, to hear those different use cases, pain points, concerns. I will tell you the one thing that most companies haven't thought about, which they do need to, and I used to think the whole thing was cleaning up your data, but agentic AI has kind of solved that problem. But it's governance. It's what are you going to do with it? It's going to impact your business. You got to look at how AI is going to work inside your industry and within your own company, depending on how your structure is, what you're willing to let go, what's going to impact your financial and business models and sales models, and could it impact it negatively? Then you've got compliance issues. I mean, just imagine being a transportation company. I still haven't wrapped my head around healthcare and artificial intelligence and how they get around.
Oh my gosh. That was I used to work at Epic Systems, and it's like healthcare, finance, and government are like arguably the most regulated industries, and the way that tech is handled in those industries is just completely different from, I don't know, even industries that you think would be regulated, like more regulated, like transportation and stuff like that. It's just those industries specifically are very interesting.
I mean,
but what you were
go ahead.
Yeah, what you were saying is super interesting, because I was talking to a friend of mine who's he's a mortgage banker, and it seems like a lot of these they love the idea. They know that they can get value out of it. But then I started talking to him, and this is all on a podcast, just 2 weeks ago, and he was like, "Yeah, but dude, the compliance, if there was no compliance, we'd be rolling. Yeah, exactly. We'd be rolling. But, similar to you with the resumes, I cannot put these things into these tools." And so what got my mind thinking is to, one, investigate that. And I'd like to get your opinion on this, because this is not something that I've looked into that much. But there is an explosion in interest, at least in the tech sphere, in the rise of, one, powerful local models, but then also just hosting local models, which is kind of a reversion from cloud, if you think about it. It's kind of unwinding the whole cloud boom. And of course, every company that we work with, that's one of their largest concerns is what even is the regulation in the first place? One of our clients is a lawyer, and he's like, he went out and did his own research, and he was like, it's a Wild West. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I don't even know, there's some things that are out there, but it's so different. So are you seeing a lot of compliance concerns and like you were saying, governance and and a lot of that? And is that a big question for a lot of the companies that you're dealing with?
It is, because it's not defined, because it's not mature. There's hesitancy. right? If you're going to be first out of the gate, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Yep.
Because eventually, think about, just governmental legislation around any new technology is so far behind what is possible right now.
Yeah.
You've got to be pretty cautious about it. But there's the bigger picture of, just like you said, healthcare, finance, transportation, all the rest of that stuff. You don't want an AI bot running air traffic control.
Yeah.
There's compliance pieces for a reason, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
But I guess the localized stuff is really, now granted, the Bullhorn piece may be an example of that, but that is walled off. That is sitting in our world. Now, it's still cloud-based and still a SaaS offering, right, at the end of the day. But I've heard the same thing where people are localizing it. The one thing, and I was talking with another client who just went through an enterprise implementation of Copilot. And it was interesting because I was talking to the network security engineer. This is where I'm getting my information from. And he was talking about the pieces and how they were going by. But the reason that he was so knowledgeable on it is because this company went into it security first. And they're like, if we cannot wall this off and live in our own ecosystem and make sure that our data is not escaping or leaving or whatever the case may be, then we're not going to do it. But they spent the money and they did it. Now, it's a very expensive endeavor to use Microsoft Copilot, wall it off, be in your own. So when you're talking about the SMB marketplace, a small, medium-sized company, they don't have the resources to be able to spend on that kind of security to load it. So the companies that are coming out with a localized LLM that already has that built in inherently, it's going to be awfully attractive.
Yeah. No, it was something that, it's just interesting. Well, one, they don't have the resources to spend on the initial setup, but then maintenance, like, it's great. You can set it up once, but like it's technology. It's going to break. It just is, right? So that comes with a team or at least one person who can, and again, like if you're a mid-market manufacturing company, you don't even know anything about technology, so you just have to hire someone to do something that you don't even know anything about. So it just kind of, I could see that being a bit troublesome.
Now think about that from a cost model perspective. You're throwing oodles of money at maintenance and people who are securing your instance and doing all this. You start going like from this, wow, this is the best thing since sliced bread. I'm going to save all kinds of money. I don't need this many people. And it starts doing this. So I think as AI matures, we're going to see more of that. I think there's always going to be the advantage to it, right? No question. It's changing how people work, how people play, I work out. I'm starting to work out. I'm not in perfect shape, but I'm trying to get there. I have Gemini on my phone, and it is my personal coach. It is my personal coach. I used a Gem. I put all my health data in there. It's tracking my food. It's tracking my workouts. I do my little updates in the sauna, and it's fantastic. I would never have imagined having that as a resource. I thought I would have thousands of dollars with a personal trainer. Yeah. And then some spreadsheet that I had to fill out.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's definitely, like you said, I haven't been around for that many like hype cycles of tech. The one that I first experienced was the crypto and Web3. And I was just getting into tech, and there's use cases for that too. But I did have the privilege to, one of my closest family members, he started a business in technology services during the internet boom. And I asked him, I was just like, what does this mean? Like, what did you see? How similar is this? And he's like, he was like, it's very similar headwinds, feels very similar to the internet boom with the transformative effect. But he was like, you got to understand, he's like, there's at least a 5-year tail from the last innovation. Like if AI stopped today, he was like, I saw at least 5 to 7 years before everyone else caught up to, the internet, just having a website essentially, right? He's like, there's a 5-year tail in consulting. So, and the thing, I don't know if this is going to slow down I don't know if you follow the tech news, but it's every day. It used to be every 3 months, and now it's every day. There's some new tool or image model or video model, and it's getting crazy, and it's only picking up. So I guess because we're close to time here, what do you think, if you were to make a prediction, what do you think, in the next 5 years, this is going to look like? For you and your company, if you were to throw a prediction out there, what do you think the transformative effect is going to be on your org?
Well, I mean, those are two different questions, and I say that because I think about that in two different lines. I think about that. Well, how is that going to impact how we as a staffing company do business and relate to our clients and our candidates? And then I think, how is that going to impact the businesses that we're going after? And internally, how is that going to impact that flow? I think the advancements we saw that took 20 years will take 5. I say 5 years, but it's probably going to be even faster than that. There's going to be a constant evolution. I see more of, to your point, localized LLMs, but industry-specific LLMs, segmentation of all those pieces, going out to very unique industry solutions and those being built. So I see that. It's so hard to predict.
Yeah.
And there's one thing that I think is going to be the next game changer, and I think it's quantum computing. And I think this close.
Yeah.
And if you look at IonQ and Rigetti and Quantum and who else, D-Wave, they are each approaching quantum in a different way. Somebody's going to win out that game.
Yeah.
And it's going to drive the next advancements. AI is great. We're seeing a lot of power, but it's a power-hungry beast.
Yeah.
So when quantum becomes the new engine that drives artificial intelligence, forget about 5 years. It's going to be, what are you going to see in a year? What are you going to see in 6 months?
In a week.
Tooling is changing constantly to your what? I blink and Nano Banana pops up. Now I can make great videos. If I wanted to make a movie, I could. Right?
Yeah.
But that was like a week.
It's the tooling. Yeah, like you said, it's the tooling that's really advancing quickly now. And I think, I haven't heard anyone talk about quantum computing, and I hadn't thought about it until yesterday, actually, just coincidentally. And I was just sitting there. I was like, wait a second. We all forgot about this. Like, if someone cracks quantum computing, you could solve encryption. Like, and I saw this post where it was like, what's after AI? Like, everyone's like, AI is going to... If you can crack encryption with... Well, that's like, that's a real Y2K. Like, that's actually a real that's not a joke Y2K. Like, that's actually a huge thing. So, yeah, I haven't heard about it. Do you keep a pulse on it? I do.
I think it's the next thing, right? I mean, if you look at the speed of the advancements now, once quantum hits, the innovation is going to go nuts. And it's going to be some scary stuff too, right?
Yeah.
It's just another tool. Now, you made a comment about crypto. You were looking at crypto because you're really interested in that. What interested me was more blockchain. I want to know more about the structure and the infrastructure and the backend technology that's driving those advancements. That's why I'm so interested in quantum as the future platform that is going to drive the real advancements of artificial intelligence, because then it'll be clean, right? If you look at, I'm a big user of Gemini just because I got it on through Verizon. I'm a user of Claude for writing. Gemini is not necessarily my go-to tool for that. But it's even if when you've got fast and it'll click out something, you get multiple hallucinations if you've got something complex. So you got to go to thinking. Then thinking takes a little bit longer. But if you got anything that's computational, that's got some coding that you're going to do, then you got to go to pro. When you hit quantum, the speed of pro will be fast.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I was talking to the team a couple of days ago, and I was like, guys, even if the intelligence stopped right here, which it likely won't, if it just gets faster, if it just gets quicker, that alone is like, if it got to the speed of executing a Python script, which is programmatically slow compared to like a low level language, but if it got to some degree in that range. Oh my gosh. Because right now, like we do software services. We are sitting and waiting for Claude Code sessions to run, and they take 5 to 10 minutes at a time. Just if that got to 5 seconds, it changes our entire, the amount of clients that we can serve, all this stuff that we can do. And that alone, just that is going to be transformative. So I completely agree with you. And then on the blockchain side of things, the underlying technology that was also very, very, very interesting to me. And I'm not in that space at all. We don't do any blockchain or Web3 contracts. But from what I've heard, it's a lot of the, like you said, like similar to AI. It's just a lot of the latency, and I think they call it like the gas prices and just like the cost of maintaining the computational cost of maintaining the infrastructure. Again, if that gets faster, well, then a lot of more use cases emerge. And there are great use cases for blockchain.
Oh, geez, on every
incredible
industry.
In every industry. We work with logistics.
Mm-hmm.
Ledger, that's just completely truth. Like, it's just a source of truth. Come on. Like, of course.
That's where the security piece comes in, right?
Yeah.
If you get the most powerful computing platform running a blockchain, so that your individuals aren't going to be impacted as much because you've got the quantum piece behind it. It's
exactly. Yeah,
that's
that's
a whole
crazy.
Topic of conversation.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. Like I said, I could have forgot about that for a couple months.
It's right around the corner, man. It's right around the corner.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we're at time here, so thanks for coming on. Any final thoughts or anything along those lines?
It's just thanks for having me on. I love the world we live in. I love the world of technology. I love what you guys are doing, and just to get on and just to have kind of an unscripted conversation around some of this, I enjoyed the heck out of it. So. I hope the folks who hear this podcast got a little something out of the dialogue, and certainly I imagine feel free to share my LinkedIn profile with us when you push it out. I'd love to continue the conversation with anybody who has questions on this content or anything. But it's been a great time, Richard. I look forward to future conversations as well.
Likewise. Thanks for coming on.
All right.
See ya.
Thanks, Ben. See ya.